wanted to move slightly more because you've mentioned about also there of the fundraising side and why you would maybe not use an LLC if you're fundraising. And I think that here's I'm just putting up a question that we had earlier. Let me just show this question. On the fundraising side, what do you need? I mean, you've talked about the company aspect of the founders agreements and the agreements into the company. But if you're also fundraising, and you've mentioned there about an LLC might not be the right structure for fundraising, what else do you need to put in place, both UK, US, or anything else?
Okay, all right. Well, I'll talk generally.
Generally,
And so the first I'm going to talk about doing a funding round, and then I'm going to talk about not doing a funding round. So let me explain. So once upon a time, the only way companies raise capital, apart from borrowing from the bank, which doesn't work for companies that are going to spend money and not make money for a while, is to do a funding round. So what's a funding round? I think of a funding round like a holiday trip with a bus, and everyone has to get on the bus. So you have to wait for the last investor to arrive. You have to pack the bus with all of them. It can only leave when the late stragglers have arrived. And so the problem is it's long and slow. And importantly, you don't have any money while you are waiting for them all to get together. So there you are doing a funding round, and you meet an investor and they go, "Hey, can I invest?" And you go, "That's amazing. Come back in October." Whereas what you'd really want to go is, "Yes, can I send you an agreement and get your money this afternoon?" So the funding round has a set of legal documents, a shareholders agreement, there's a new articles, or in the US it's called the certificate of incorporation, and a range of other documents that are over many decades have been honed to protect the rights of investors and protect the rights of the founders, because they, of course, sometimes see eye to eye and sometimes they don't. Founders might want to, maybe you get as a founder an offer to sell your company for £10 million, which is awesome, right? You're going to tell your spouse, "Honey, I sold the company for 10 mil, I've owned 50%. That's great. But for an investor who invested in a 20 million valuation round, they just lost half their money. So what you want is a set of checks and balances that have been honed over the years. And what we've done on Seed Legals is we've got a workflow that takes the founders through these decisions to be made. We educate them on what it means, and we have data over thousands of funding rounds to show what's market standard. So if your investor says, "I want preference shares," should you reject it because it's an outrageous request, or would you be the only idiot trying to reject it because it's a completely common request and you wouldn't know? So you'd go on to Seed Legal's thermometer, or as part of the round, we'd take you through, these are things an investor might want. If you're raising a small round, say no to this. If it's a bigger round, probably you can't say no to it. And now you understand everything that investors will want and everything that you will want as well. So what we've done over thousands of rounds is to look at when things go right and when things go wrong. So for example, a nice Easter egg surprise for many founders when they do a round on Seed Legals is, of course, as a founder, you're probably paying yourself much below market rate as a salary. You could be earning £150,000 a year elsewhere. You're getting £40,000 a year as founder of your own company, but you've got lots of equity. Wouldn't it be great if you could sell some of your shares? And in the UK, you pay only 10% capital gains tax and no income tax if you sell some shares up to £1 million, which is great. So, but usually the investors don't want you to sell your shares because they don't want the founders cashing out. So you can't sell your shares. So on Seed Legals, we build in a provision to let you sell some of your shares so that you can do this easily if you find a buyer. So it's these little things that one day you go, "I wish I could sell some shares." Oh, wait, that's built in. And you might now design the way you fundraise and build your business so that you can sell some shares and pay off a mortgage and so on later. So anyway, doing a funding round is quite slow. You have to get all the investors on the bus together. And so wouldn't it be great if you meet someone at an event and they say, "Can I invest?" And you go, instead of saying come back in October, you go, yes. And so there's a new fashion. I call it, or we call it on Seed Legal's, agile fundraising, which means raising before a funding round, doing a funding round, and top up a round. And so in the US, the instrument for doing that is called a SAFE. In the UK, we call it a seed fast. In both cases, it's a very simple document that says, I'm going to give you money now, and when you do a funding round later, you're going to give me shares. And to incentivize me to come in now, instead of waiting, you're going to give me a 10 or 20% discount on the valuation that the shareholders or investors will pay later, or you might cap my investment. So I'm investing at, let's say, a 5 million cap. But if your next round is at a 10 million valuation, you'll give me shares as if it was a 5 million valuation. And these safes in the US and seed fasts in the UK have transformed the way companies fundraise. And on Seed Legals, we now see 70% of the investment raised is not in a funding round. It's before a round or topping up a round. And some people have just embraced it in raising in a completely new way. So one of my favorite examples is a bakery. The founder of the bakery isn't a fintech guru, she's a baker. And she's made like 200 of these seed fasts. And I'm convinced everyone who comes into the bakery, she says, would you like a, baguette? Would you like a sourdough? And would you like a seed fast? And, sometimes small amounts, £500, £1,000. And so what you're doing is you're reaching out to customers, you're reaching out to angel investors, and you're doing these rapid fire small investments that will then convert into shares when you do your funding round later. So when founders hear about this, they probably take a little while to go, I'm still thinking of doing a funding round, until the very next person they meet who goes, sounds great, can I invest? And actually, you didn't need £1 million today. If you had £50,000 or £100,000, you could hire a designer or you could outsource some development. And so you start raising in smaller incremental amounts that let you develop things faster.
I love that. So, I mean, the analogy is actually works all the way through. So with your founding agreements, not the fundraising part, with founding agreements, you're almost predicting and looking at de-risking some of the future problems that can happen. And seed legals are also doing that on the funding stage by using these safes or seed fasts and the structures in place to really say, well, these are the problems that could arise. We can prepare you for them, but we can also equip you to act quickly if people approach you on the funding side right now. That's tremendous.